Okay, let's go.
So good morning, I'm Juliana, and we're going to present a financial analysis for the project Florida Apartment Community. There is an apartment and is located in Dayton. We suppose that the date of acquisition was January 1st, and they start in January 1st also. The property type is residential. The size of the property is 100,000 square feet, 100 units, and the holding period is 5 years. So the uses and sources that they use, the land cost 20% was 2 million. The improvement cost is 80%, 8 million, total of 10 million. And the partner A used 25%, 2.5 million. The first mortgage was 75, 7,500,000, and the total again 10 million.
Then we get more information about the loan. So the loan was 7,500,000. It was done for a rate of 5% over 25 years. It came with a loan origination fee of 4%. We calculate the services for the year was 526,131. Okay, that's our income for the first year. So first we calculate the potential income, the PGI, 100,000 square feet, $12, and the other incomes, 100,000, give us a revenue of 1,300,000. The operating expense were $100,000, $300,000, and we calculate the vacancy and credit losses for 180,000, which was 50% of PGI. What I like is we added that because when you do a review, I think for somebody who doesn't know the project, you give them like a quick assessment of what is going to spend on the first year and what you're going to get in operation. Operating cash flow. So PGI, the minimum rate, vacancy 15%, other income 100%. PGI 1,120,000, operating expense 200,000 ATS. We use this tax rate because it was given in our example, but it could be changed. If we had many partners, we could have many tax rate too. It's just like a model for future presentation, and we didn't do the display for the year in between because it takes too much space, there is too much number, and the people you show your presentation to, they really don't care, they don't have the time to read, it's too abstract. So we just put like the fundamentals.
No, I like it. That's a great idea. I like it.
Okay. We create a page for disposition. So it will be disposed end of year 5, disposition cap rate to determine the selling price, cost of disposition 4%, cost of recovery 25, 15. Here again, we didn't put any numbers because people you present to, I think they are more interested by proportions than by real numbers. That's why we say like, just give the fundamentals, we don't give calculation. That investment performance, your IRR, before and after tax, the net present value, that show how much more or less you will have to pay to achieve the 15% interest rate of return. 15% rate of return, and the diverse performance ratio below. There is no calculation description again.
There's no, I'm sorry, what?
We didn't explain how we got those numbers. We just present them. That was the goal of our project. Present number in a clear way, but not getting into details.
Okay.
It's not business.
So you didn't include then the cash flows for the IRR, the NPV?
Yes, it's like you will have your calculation sheets
Yep.
in some document, and
Yep.
you would just put the result.
Okay,
Because if you put all together,
yep.
you could create a sheet where you would
Yeah, yeah.
explain,
No, I'm with you.
additional. But I don't know if investors want really to see it when you present, so we stay simple.
Okay. No, I can understand that. Okay. No, I think that's good. Yeah. Yep.
That's it.
Okay. Yep, Woody.
Thank you.
No, I don't know how to close it. I'm the old guy.
Stop it.
Press the, Woody, the black button there, okay?
Oh.
No. Go click the screen again.
Technology, right?
Like the bigger, like click the PowerPoint. We believe in you, Woody.
These are the stuff that.
Okay, then click the, tap it again. All right, you see that, this, the exit? There you go, click it. There you go.
You sure?
No, you click the, top right corner, top right.
Oh, okay, it's just like our screen, okay.
And then down at the bottom of the show.
See where the slider is? Just to the left of it. The very bottom of the zoom in.
Yes.
There's a little icon just to the left of it. Press the button.
Oh, thank you first. I did mine a little differently, which I always do, so Professor Forky, like this. Yes,
Okay.
I wanted to make it, I looked online, like I told everybody before, to see what the best way to do financial presentations. And you probably could make a career out of this because there's no good real way, so that's probably why Professor Forky has doing it. So we're in Davie, Florida, multifamily, 100 units, built in 2015. $10 million acquisition right here near Nova Southeastern University. The acquisition was at a cap rate of 8.2, which the projected NOI was nicely 820,000 with a $10 million acquisition. In 5 years, the cap rate is projected to be 7%, which will generate around $13 million exit. So I only think there's a couple important things, which probably other people have heard me say, and nobody cares about anything when you go to school except for IRR, because that's what you're all about. So before tax, the before tax IRR, I did a graph because they said that was one of the best ways to project things. So going in, it was 3.5 million because the acquisition was 10 million, but they had about $1 million more for the acquisition plus 25% equals 3.5 million. And when the reversion rate is about 5.6 million. And then the after tax is very much the same. They only had a 1% operating expense increase, which is kind of nominal. In the previous slide, they only had about a 2% increase in income over the 5-year period, which I think is very low in both cases. But it looks very similar with a 15% IRR, which most investors would like, but not less than that. So cash flow, I only did in 1 year because it's really what everybody's going to look at. This is the IRR total before tax, which was on the previous screen, and then after tax. And here's how it all flows.
Now, the only danger, and I just want to point this out, with doing just 1 year and not at least showing kind of how the progression goes, is whether or not the first year is a stabilized cash flow. Because usually with most projects you have, especially new projects, you're going to have a lease-up period, and so therefore your cash flow may not be stabilized in that first year. And so to put that out there is kind of like, bam, there it is, may or may not be the best idea.
Well, on the previous slide, where it said before tax IRR, it had the cash flows at the bottom.
Yeah.
It was very flat, but yes, sir. And in the loan terms, it's 5% interest rate, 25-year amortization, 5-year term, which everything is based on, payments per year, loan costs, and loan payments monthly with the 5-year total. And lastly, I did a summary since I was doing all this financial analysis. Number one is I think the rates that was proposed was very low, so there's a lot of room for for expansion on the rental rate, so I think it was a very, very conservative, because in Davie, the average is $1,424 per unit, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, which is about 1,000 square feet. As I said, I think the projected increase is very low, and I think the RRR was very conservative, which is good. So if you're going into investor, you don't want to go in with 30%, because they're going to say, wait a second, where did you get all those numbers? So, and I based that on a previous project I did in his school. So I already have the data. Thank you.
What?
No, I wanted to ask if he was picking or if we could volunteer.
Okay, go ahead.
I loved it, Woody. I think you did a great job.
Thank you.
That's
Oh, you can tap it, tap it.
It's already there.
Monkeys with a football.
Whoa.
Far back.
Why isn't it showing? It's not doing what I want it to do.
Therefore, it's just a number spot.
What's the first slide?
No, but it's not showing my,
Animation?
yeah.
Oh.
I have it all, but I made it for the presentation purposes.
Yeah.
So do file save as and then do it, because sometimes it's like in read-only mode. It does save to the PC.
Yeah.
It'll usually say read-only.
From beginning.
No, it's not doing it.
Okay, well, sorry.
Well, I don't know if it's gonna do any of it.
Oh, wait. That's doing stuff.
Go forward.
Okay, well, the product type is apartments. My name's Maylee, this is Angelo, and we went off on, and I'm sorry that the graphic's not showing how I designed it to show, but my biggest thing with working with other investors, and Angelo's biggest thing too, is typically we see people just wanting to know what the bottom line is. What are their costs going in? What are their costs going on? What's their cap rates? And really, what's the cash flow at the end of the day? What money did they make? So that's what we predominantly focused on. What it's showing you at first is product type, apartments, because your investor is going to want to know what they're getting themselves into. The location is Davie, Florida, because we believe strongly that the investor's also going to want to know where they're putting their money. Next, we show the number of apartments that you're investing into, purchase price, financing terms, interest rate. We wanted to make it nice and bold. If we're presenting to an audience, we wanted to go in, out. Initial investment, this is what you as the investor is putting into the project. This includes your acquisition and your loan cost. Holding period, we're going to be holding this property for a total of 5 years. Going in cap rate for you as an investor is 8.20%. NOI for the first year was $820,000 and your annual growth rate was of 2%. We felt it was important for them to see, not just, they're gonna see the total cash flow at the end, but to see what their annual growth rate was projected to be based on the first NOI. And the same thing for operating expenses. Again, that's gonna greatly influence what's happening to your NOI, so we felt that was important to highlight, and what kind of growth that was projecting.
Yeah, and something we noted in this is that the growth rate of the expenses lag behind that of the, gain in the income. Typically, when we're building out models, we keep those hand in hand. Just something we saw.
Then, reversion sales price, reversion cap rate. Lastly, here you see highlighted at the top, this is the before tax cash flow, the money going in, the cash flows coming in, and then ultimately what you would be selling it for, and what your IRR was once you sold the property, and your net present value on it. Then we wanted to select and show the investor the actual tax rates. And lastly, show them the tax flows, or the cash flows based on after taxes. Again, back to year 1, year 2, 4, 5, and then what you sold it for, or what you made out of it. And your IRR, net present value, after tax cash flows. And allow the floor for questions. Thank you.
Just pick somebody at random. Tap on one.
Tap on one, no, tap on one.
Don't look, don't look.
I don't think
Who has to follow?
Hello, this is Goldship. This is Cynthia. We are presenting the Florida apartment community. It's in Dayton, Florida. The property type is apartments. We have 100 units and the purchase price is 10 million. The loan amount is 75% and the initial investment is 3,500,000. Then we have the acquisition price.
We can see the mortgage statement here is going to be, the loan amount is going to be 75% of loan to value. The loan costs are going to be 4%. The interest rate you can see is going to be at 5%. Amortization period will be for 25 years. Loan term holding period, we're looking at 5 years. Payments of 12 payments. And you can see the payment, which I'm sure that's very important that everybody would want to know, $43,824. And ADS, loan fees is going to be $300,000. Now this is for year one, potential rental income, we're looking at $12,000 per year. Annual vacancy rate will be 15% of potential rental income. The other income, it will be coming in at $100,000, and annual changes expected to change is 2%.
The only thing I'd be careful with that is because the way that's sort of being presented as like a pie chart, you would implicitly be thinking that represents like 25%, that represents 25%, that represents 25%, and that's not what you're presenting, and so that could be initially very confusing to somebody.
So the investor, we're looking at capital gains tax rate 15%, the recapture tax rate 25%, holding period of should be 5 years, disposition price 7%, the cost of sale 8%, and so cash flow analysis. The ordinary income is we're looking at 28%, capital gains 15% tax rate. The recapture tax rate, 25%, again, 5 years, and disposition price would be 7%. Now, taxable income. I decided to go ahead and include all of this because any questions that we might have, we can just refer to this. And so here we show the cash flow before taxes. So year 1, 2, 3, 5, all the way to 5. And then after taxes.
Okay, once again, I think I asked you guys not to just copy and paste over to the spreadsheet, and there was a reason for that, because part of it, that's really unreadable from back here, and so you've got to summarize that information. I understand you already have done some summary up front, but that information needs to be in a very readable format, and it's not.
So this is just a return on investment before tax and after tax for the years 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we're looking at 16% overall, and then after tax would be 13.7.
Okay. Anything else? All right, great, thank you.
Can I go? We're not on.
Sure.
Hey everyone, Alex Cohen. This is my DCF analysis. The input values and the prerequisites. So the present value acquisition price is 10 million at a 75% loan to value. So you get the loan amount at 7.5 million at a 5% interest rate. The holding period is going to be for 5 years, but the loan amount, the amortization period is 25 years. With that, you can get your monthly payment, which I put down here, is $43,844.25, and you're going to have 300 payments. I put the acquisition cost here just so you can get the basis acquisition. It's going to be important later on, but we'll come back to it. So with the monthly payment, you can, so first I did was calculate your NOI. I kind of just laid it out. This is for year one. I tried to show exactly how it's going to go for each year. So you can see your rental income is going to increase 2% each year, along with, and then your vacancy and credit losses will change because it's 15% of your potential income, and then your total operating income will also increase at 1% a year. So your NOI will change every year. Obviously, it's going to increase about a little bit over 10,000 a year. So with your NOI, you can calculate your debt service coverage ratio. I think that's one of the first things you should do probably. So I showed it right here. Easily calculating your ADS just by multiplying your monthly payment times 12. And for year one, you get a debt service coverage ratio of 1.56. Obviously, every year it's going to change, so because your NOI is going to change your monthly payments. So, so this is the cash flow. Again, here's, I wanted just to separate the interest and the principal payments because they didn't really show you the principal payment. Just easily, with the interest payment, you just subtract that from the ADS and you get your principal payment, which was $154,655. I also showed how to get your tax liability savings in the first year because you're going to need to know that to get your after-tax flow cash, your cash flow after taxes by minusing your liability. Also, this will change every year too because you can see interest is going to change. So your tax liability is changing every year. This is the sale at the end of year 5, just so you can see basically your gains or your losses here. For this situation, this is why I wanted to talk about your basis of acquisition here because it's very important. With the depreciation, you can get your gain or losses. Here you have obviously over almost $3 million gain and a 1.2 million gain from appreciation. This is the cash flow values, very important. Obviously IRR on the bottom is, I would highlight. It's, you got before tax, you have after tax. You can easily see now like how the NOI and stuff is going to change based on, how your tax flow and cash flow is going to change based on your tax liability. That's why I put here in red, just make sure you're going to be minusing your liability from year 1 to this year 1. And this is the proof of the IRR. Basically pretty simple stuff, just cash flow, add it all, minus your 3.5 million, and you get your total cash flow, minus the down payment, and that's your amount earned.
So just a couple things to point out. Alex, the numbers, that's fine, and I know you're a numbers guy, but one of the big problems there, you had like really inconsistent fonts, inconsistent sort of font sizes relative, and then some of the colors that you used. It did not flow well in terms of a visual aesthetic. Okay, and I understand that's not in your wheelhouse in the sense that once again you're a numbers guy. But part of what we're really trying to get at with this is how do we make those numbers appear on the screen as appealing as possible so that the person in the audience is going to be able to react to them and be able to ultimately understand kind of the flow of where everything sort of is coming from and where it's going. So, from that standpoint, that I think is where you were really challenged is, you inherently maybe don't have that sort of visual, sort of aesthetic sense to maybe be able to do that. But in terms of the amount of numbers that you put up there, I think was in the appropriate range. It's just a question of how you
presented it.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Right next to it. Go ahead.
Hello everybody, I'm Anthony,
I'm Oswin.
and we're presenting to you the Florida apartment community here in Davie, Florida. There's a total of 100 units. It's a $10 million acquisition, mortgage cost, and then they are apartments.
The mortgage information, basically, we just wanted to keep everything clean and simple. Makes no sense to read off the numbers because everyone had the same numbers, but we just presented it basically in a clean format so that there's a lot of space and people's eyes can actually be drawn to the basic information it is that's necessary, like the 5 years, the amortization period, the type of payments, and so forth.
Next, we tried to blow up all of those really important numbers, but try to make them look pretty enough so that people would be like, oh, they look really nice, they thought it out, they've done a thorough presentation. So I did a font that would really play around with the idea that it's still easy to see, but it has a cleaner look than a lot of the other fonts that most people use. And
Why did you choose to write out effective rental income and abbreviate all the others?
Because that's one that I didn't know if we could, because it didn't have those parentheses inside of the Excel sheet, and I didn't want to write or mix up something.
Gotcha, okay.
And then, of course, the net operating income at the end, since that's like one of the most important numbers, is in green.
And this is basically the cash flow. Cash flow is important year for year, so that was included. And we started out just with the basic information, not to clutter it up, which would be the NOI, debt service before tax cash flow, and the after tax cash flow. Instead of doing the full stack, because the full stack kind of becomes too much.
Too much to handle. And then we started talking about the projected cash sale. So we talked about the sales price, the cost of sale, mortgage balance, and of course all the other information.
And then what has previously been said is the measures of performance that any investor would actually be interested in. So we decided to include that on the slide, but do it in 2 separate columns so that the information is separated and not stacked all on top of each other.
And then again, with the IRR being one of the most important numbers, we put that into green. You could switch it for red if it goes red, which hopefully not.
And again, measures of performance from year to year. We also decided to include that information, feeling that it would also be important to whoever we were presenting to for this purpose.
So then we show the breakdown of the before tax IRR, because that was where the class ended, so you cut it off right here, but it's the same as, or similar to the after. And then the IRR is again in green to really show that that's what is the number you should be focusing on.
So we probably need to be careful with the smiley faces. Only because, no, and I'm not trying to be cute or funny about it, but, keep in mind, the sort of folks you're going to be presenting to, this is not to amuse them. It really is, you're trying to present the information, you're trying to make sure, consider the audience is what I guess I'm getting at. That, you're talking about folks that are strictly looking at this as a financial investment, so, anything that might be cute or, funny or whatever, just be careful about that.
Okay. And then all the little symbols are
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, if you're not buying, I mean, you can try to run it off of your jump drive if you got your jump drive with you.
Don't put any pressure on you. He doesn't expect a lot of me. Just leave it in there.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Isabel.
Jack Jones.
Okay, and we're here to present you the Florida apartment community. And we kept it very straightforward. The location is located in the city of Dayton, Florida. Apartment is 100 units, and we have the acquisition price for $10 million. And we have a couple more numbers, like which is the potential rental income and the vacancy rate and operating expense, which is $3,000 every year, but it's expected to increase 1% every year. And we also have our net operating income for $71.
So be careful, once again, that this whole thing, you've got 3 or 4 different lines worth of information in that one bullet point.
Yes.
You know, looking at that visually, it can be very confusing. I mean, for a presentation, all right? So, you know, separating those things out, you know, so that people can follow it more easily than trying to read through it.
Yes. And we have our financing assumptions, our loan to value, 75% interest rate of 5%, and the loan term, amortization for 25 years, and capital gain, and so on and so forth, and disposition price.
Okay, just one other little thing. So, no, go back. Okay, so always make sure that you proof everything correctly. Obviously, the capital gain, got the L missing, and it's a little thing. But once again, you go into a presentation, and the folks that are going to be watching this are going to be picking apart every little detail, every mistake, whether it be a small mistake or it be a big mistake. That's going to instantly destroy your credibility. So, you know, make sure that you're paying attention to, you know, every little thing that you're presenting to whoever it is that you're presenting it to. Okay.
And we have a cash flow. We did a projection of all 5 years for the NOI and as well as the cash flow before taxes, so we can give them the exact numbers and what they are looking for the 5 first years, so we can see how the cash flow for the property and what they are investing in. And Jack?
So going back to that slide just for a second. All right. So what's wrong with that slide? You tell me.
It's mixing NOI and cash flow.
I put NOI, but I just put N of year for year 1 and then year 2, so it goes.
That's part of it, but just the way that it's visually displayed just doesn't make any sense. Plus, you have on the first one, you've got the number obviously over here on the left-hand side, whereas all the others are on the right-hand side. And so once again, it just doesn't flow well. Okay, people want to be able to look at this and instantly see what it is they're looking for. So that 293,869. You know, it's just kind of over here by itself compared to all the others are on the right-hand side. And then
because I put end of year, so they could, I don't even want to put year 1, year 2, year 3. So I just wanted to put the first year, end of year, so they can know what it is.
And I understand that, but my point, okay, keep in mind, this is not about the numbers. This is about the presentation of the numbers, okay? So this is all about the visual aesthetics. This is how it looks, okay? And so what I'm saying is, for someone that's in the audience looking at that, that can be very confusing, okay, in terms of the way that it's visually presented.
The property was held for 5 years. At the end of the 5 years, we sold, it was being sold. This is the selling price. And that's all the numbers associated with the disposition of the property.
Okay.
The sale proceeds was 11,307. Here is the investment performance. The return on asset was 8.2%. Before tax cash, 7.66%. And the acquisition cap rate is 8.2%.
See, like another little thing here, you're inconsistent with your capitalization of the letters, okay? Like before tax cash on cash, you know, each of those should probably be capitalized if you're gonna have everything else capitalized. It's like, I'm not trying to pick it apart, but at the same time I am, because these are the sort of little things that, once again, someone is gonna pick up on. They're gonna say, that's a really messy, you know, sort of presentation of numbers. And then, you know, things aren't, the numbers aren't in a singular column, you know, so it's just, it makes it a real challenge to kind of be able to pull from that. And then you're abbreviating some things, you're not abbreviating others. You know, those are just all things that are gonna instantly be, you know, picked up on by someone viewing this. Okay?
Here's to show the investment performance after the disposition of the asset. Before tax, IRR is 9.91%, NPV 15%, and the after tax IRR is 7.66%, and NPV after tax is 15%.
Yet again, you got the indention of the NPV, the last NPV, and then you've got left off the decimals on that one relative to the others. I mean, it's just, so I'm not trying to be really nitpicky, but these are, I'm telling you, these are things people are gonna pick up on, okay? Next.
I think I don't think it's the right one, because honestly, the one that I uploaded that I didn't look like that, I guess by doing that, because the one that I fixed that I gave him look all uniform, maybe it's one of the one that quickly picked on, because it didn't look like that, I can assure you, because everything looked uniform. I think that's one of the draft that we did.
No.
I apologize for that. We just picked it up real quick because this is not the one.
Yeah.
Everything
Yeah.
looked uniform.
Okay.
We have the
No.
final draft.
I'm just pointing out
I
the issues
understand.
that I see.
All the one that I prepared, they all look aligned,
Okay.
and we
Okay.
just quickly picked this
Okay.
one. But I apologize for that.
Okay.
I apologize for that because it didn't look like that. Everything was uniform.
Okay.
And the one that I
No problem.
right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Whoever wants to go next. Okay.
Alright, so hi, I'm Alana.
And I'm Adriana.
So we're obviously the Florida Apartment Community 100 units in Davie, Florida.
So we just really tried to keep it simple, go into details that we thought were most important. And if we're presenting this in front of people, then we just wanted to know basic things.
Let me go into the cash flows so people can see that it's obviously increasing in price. There's no type of dip. So it is on the rise over consistency. So.
Well, Paul, I like the chart. You probably should have titled it. You see there, it still has.
Yeah.
Art removed it.
It's good vision.
Again, we were just trying to quickly mention the before and after tax without it being too overwhelming.
So then we talk about the taxable income. So we have a legend at the bottom that talks about what each line represents, the NOI, the PRI, ERI, and GOI. So, and the next slide talks about the expenses in the property, so.
And lastly, we just wanted to, not lastly, but we did want to create a visual that, showed it going up.
For the real estate taxable income, yeah. And then that's the projected sales price. And the sales proceeds before tax, after tax. And the ending investment return.
Okay, great, thank you.
Oh, man.
Sorry, I'm so just.
Oh.
Yeah.
Alright, so, alright, well, whatever, so. Alright, my name is Erin Ladd. This is gonna be my DCF analysis for the DB apartment complex. I always like to start my presentations with a little agenda so you kind of know what we're going to be talking about and what we're going to be running through. So first we're going to be going over to our assumptions. It's going to be 100 units. We all have the same numbers. This is the visual. Again, property assumptions. This is going to be an annual increase for each, average. Again, financing assumptions. Investor assumptions. This is going to be the cash flow. And I did copy it, but I highlighted it and I made the relevant points. I made the relevant points bigger and I tried to make it so it popped out more. This is going to be the sale price. The IRR.
So with the exception of the copy and paste, obviously, amazing. That's exactly what we're looking for. But yeah, I mean, can all of you not agree though that what you see in the copy and paste just looks awful?
Yes.
You know, but the rest of the presentation, amazing. Okay, this is what I'm talking about. You know, so you know, clearly your design background comes through with this, and that's good. That's what we want. You know. And I understand that not everybody is capable of that. That's not the point. But what I'm trying to get you to do is to at least recognize how much more visually appealing that is, you know, than some of the others. Okay, that's what we're trying to sort of get at. So on that, absolutely kudos. But yeah, we've got to figure out a way to deal with all these numbers other than a cut and paste, you know, sort of situation. Because even the color scheme of the yellow highlighting, I mean, it just looks dreadful. So,
yeah. I spent so much time on the other slides, I finally got to this part and I was like,
yeah, no, and I can understand that.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think everybody can hopefully see what I'm trying to get at. Okay?
The agenda was
I like the agenda.
I love that.
Yeah. So go back through yours all again. You don't have to necessarily talk about them, but just kind of go back through the very beginning just so everybody kind of can.
So I'm kind of at an advantage because Urban Planning 101, like that was one of the first things they taught us was presentation agendas because we were going to city council. Like city council is like the Super Bowl of like projects and you can't, you have to like.
Get that one.
Yeah, exactly. So it's always, and I always number my slides. There's actually a number there. That way the investor can be like, when they're taking notes, go back to slide number or whatever. And I always like to keep my pinpoints simple. No more than 6, but when I have multiple, like just as minimal words as possible, I always find really important to do. So.
I like it.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, great job.
Man, what do you guys think of me?
Hi, good morning, everybody. So when I was putting together my templates, I mean, mine is not going to be as nice as hers. Just a warning. But when I was trying to put this together, I thought about the development to
project that we did and how I had to do the financial presentation. So I try to make it as very straightforward as possible, and I'll show you. So I have a slide to present what the project's about. I included a nice picture. Basically the main points, so that you don't spend so much time going over what the project's about, because you already had somebody doing that before you and you run out of time. Then I display the important numbers for the income summary. Basically, so you can kind of explain how you got the numbers, your discoveries throughout the process, while you have all this information available for your audience to read. Then the cost summary, I added the yield to cost, and I left it blank just so that I can show that that was not part of the model that was given to us, but that was something that I also included in my presentation, and I think it's nice to include, and it's important for the developer. Then I have my sources right here, listing the debt, the equity that we're going to require, and then a breakdown of who your investor is going to be, or if it's just one, then what the contribution is going to be, either in percentages or either percentages or I'm sorry.
It's very sensitive.
Percentages or dollar, and what the role of each investor is going to be: partner, just the developer. Then we have the loan details. Then again, the important numbers, so that you can explain to your audience exactly what your discoveries were. Then a cash flow, and I included all the dollars amount, and my thought behind this was so you can just present the growth numbers and say, okay, I got the vacancy is going to be X percent for year one, or if it's going to be the same for all of it. Kind of present how you got these numbers with the let's say the growth rate for the PGI, etc.
The one thing I would point out, that I'm glad you cut off the cents. Okay, we don't really need that. So nearest dollar is perfect, but we probably should have right justified all of the numbers.
Okay.
That way, that once again, visually, it sort of lines up.
Here.
Yeah.
Okay. And then my sales proceeds, again, basic numbers, important numbers, so you can explain to your audience. And my cash flow in a summary, so that I can show and wrap it up with my IR. And that's it.
Okay, whoever wants to go next. Don't rush all at once.
Let's go, Ryan.
Call me that in a while.
So I just did a basic clean title slide, all the information you need. Put the all the assumptions in a table, nice, easy to look at, order flow. I've kind of worked on the guideline that if it's a number that moves over time, you want to put it in kind of like a bar or a line chart. So here you have your total operating expenses. You can see how they move. I put a dip in one just so you can see like if it's like something out of the ordinary, it kind of draws attention to. TOE was, not TOE, the vacancy rate stayed at 15%, so it's kind of hitting on that line, but normally it will fluctuate, so you'll be able to see that. You don't really see any numbers because I read an assumption that the investor has a question that he can ask, or if you're briefing the numbers, you don't want them to get lost reading numbers at the same time that you're saying the numbers. Continue with the financing assumptions, what else I can put in? Comparison. Cash flow, cut out all the worksheet stuff and just get down to the results. And you can see the net operating income on a bar chart. See the cash flow before and after, to kind of give you like a visual comparison.
I do like that. I think that's a good visual to sort of show. Yeah.
And then we have cash sale. You see, a blow up of what you made before and after tax. And I should have had an IRR, but kind of got lost in the cloud.
Okay. Okay, we're running out of people. Okay.
Oh, nice. Good job.
Model. Models are fun for us.
Yeah, so this is our DCF analysis.
So this is our product. Florida, everyone has the same. Wanted to just present the key information. Next.
So these are our growth rates, so potential rental income up 2% every year, OI up 1%, OE up 1%, and the constants, the vacancy 15%.
Some of our mortgage assumptions, including our disposition price, as well as the percentages that we're getting of loan, and then our holding period.
So this is our mortgage data. Interest rate for the first mortgage 5%, second mortgage 6%, loan term, first mortgage 5 years, second mortgage 30 years, amortization period, first mortgage 25 years, second mortgage 30 years, periodic payment 43,000, first mortgage 55,000, second mortgage.
You guys add in a second mortgage?
Find a second mortgage.
Yeah, we might add one.
Just in case.
I don't recall there being a second mortgage.
No, I don't.
Okay. Forget the second mortgage.
No,
yeah, we just wanted to give the information just orderly and logically so that it's easy to analyze.
Okay,
no. Next. So we have some potential gross incomes in our NOIs, and you kind of see our 1% growth rate of NOI.
We got double money in year 2 of the NOI, the 840, $2 signs.
All we see is signs for the most part.
Okay.
Sale price 1.3 million. Sale proceeds before taxes. Sale proceeds after taxes. We decided to keep this one screenshot because we liked how it looked.
Clearly, your guys' skill sets do not lie on the visuals. All the numbers.
You like numbers,
I get it. Yeah. This is what happens whenever 2 finance guys make a presentation. It's not. Yeah, you don't get the visual appeal. So, all right. Thanks, gentlemen. That's what we're trying to fix. Let's put this in perspective. You guys are the problem, Aaron is the solution.
There you go. I'll vote Aaron early and often. That was a great one.
Okay. So when I'm presenting investment packages or any kind of investment opportunities, I want to show some kind of visuals, even though we're getting right to the numbers, and somewhat just being quick and see what everybody's return is going to be on their investment. So I have Florida Apartment Community, the multifamily investment opportunity in Dayton, Florida. Sorry for the bad picture, I didn't have a high resolution one. All right, so this is what we're going to go through, our table of contents. We're going to show basically the agenda. That's what you did. Keep it simple, keep it brief, less than 10 pages if you wanted. All right, so when you're going to an investment opportunity, you want to know where it is, what it's around, what it looks like even if you're going to throw some money at it, you don't know what exactly it looks like, so you want to see some pictures. Basically, yeah, it's a little lengthy, but you're saying, the first paragraph basically talks about what it's around. It's around shopping malls, it's around highways, it's easy to get to. It's around a bunch of schools, it's around Nova, FAU, Broward College, it has 67,000 students that it's around. It's 314 acres of campus that it's around, so you're going to have plenty of people around this apartment complex.
Obviously, way, way, way too many words on that slide.
So the property summary, like again, show some pictures of what you're looking at the same time you're still enthused about what you're looking at. I added some other things in there, like, so you see the site description. I put number of buildings 3. I want to add some more just basic detail to it, so you have more of a visual when you're looking at the numbers. Number of stories 3, year built, I made it up, 1985. Lot size, everything else, you know, the density, the level, topography, foundation, what it's made out of, concrete, whatnot.
So Kyle, yeah. What you're presenting would be great in the project book.
Yeah.
Not for the project presentation, because I can't read any of those words. I can't see any of those numbers from back here.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, that's how blind I am. So the point being is, that's great, once again, for the project book and the write-up, but for the PowerPoint visual presentation, it's not gonna work. Because you're gonna have a bunch of, you know, old guys like me sitting in the back of the room that can't see and not gonna be very happy.
I can blow this up. I'm looking at my screen at work and I can see it fine, obviously, but this is obviously, there's plenty of space to blow these fonts up.
Yep.
But like you said, okay. So you're gonna hate these next pages. I didn't copy and paste though. I did not copy and paste. Every cash flow analysis. Yeah. I can read one 2020 vision.
Well, I used to in 2020 vision. Not anymore.
So yeah, so I put all the cash flow analysis on here. I want to see your mortgage data, obviously the cost recovery. I wanted to put the taxable income over there, so when you're looking at everything, you understand how it's all growing, where all the money's flowing to, and how it's rising. You know, 2% here, 50% here. So more of a visual access. Yeah, you still have the font size bigger for you back there. But like I said, the IRR is here. I recreated it so it's more visual appealing. I want to show the taxable income. This alignment's a little off. Couldn't fix that, but yeah. And I want to throw in the demographics as well. So these numbers aren't flowing to Davey. I just had some data I want to throw in there, but when I'm presenting to investment people, they want to see, you know, what's going on around the area and who they're targeting. So I threw the demographics in as well. That's it.
Okay. So once again, I mean, you know, the information was great for the project book, but not for the presentation. Hopefully that's the lesson learned.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, you can hand out so you can read it.
Okay, my name's Jeff. I stuck to the spreadsheet format just because it's a format people are familiar with. That way they can focus on the numbers if they want to. This is just my title page for the assignment, but you know.
We would blow that up to the full size to the start from the beginning.
From beginning on the top left.
There we go. And then you can just use the bottom right hand over there to go from one slide to the next.
You know, I stuck to the format just so, with the spreadsheet format, I took out some of the redundancy of the CCIM and just deleted some stuff and blew it up. But with this format, it's something that the viewer can get familiar with, and it still includes the numbers. But it's a format they're familiar with again, so they can kind of follow it and expect what to see. You know, they expect what's coming up next. This is probably a little bit too much information, but I kept all the information. I just took out the redundancy and made it clear. And,
I understand you cleaned it up quite a bit, but yeah,
yeah.
It is still very much spreadsheety. You know.
Taxable income, cash flow. It's obviously going a little bit too fast.
I mean, at least your numbers are the right size. Unlike Kyle, you know, so we can definitely read your Okay. I get the idea. Okay.
I did highlight INR and NPV just so it stands out towards the end.
Okay, great.
Hi, I'm Lei. Today I will present on the DCF analysis about the apartments in Davie, Florida. And the first slide is shows some information, basic information about the apartments. I got a slide. Are you good for that?
From the bottom.
Bottom right?
The bottom right.
You go to the bottom right.
There you go. Thank you. Go on the bottom.
There we go. Okay, that'll work too.
And the second slide shows some potential income and the expense for these apartments. And the third one shows the mortgage loan information and what's the cost. Here shows the tax income and the cash flow for this investment. Here shows the apartment sold at the end of the 5 year and the sale prices before tax and after tax. And here is compare the investment performance about the before tax and after tax IRR. And the last one shows about the IRR.
Okay. All right, great, thank you. So basically with yours, much like, several of the others that, where your skill sets are clearly on the finance side of things, which is fine, but, what we've got to do is to be able to repackage this information to where that it's more visually, aesthetically, pleasing to the consumer. So from the, and I think, once again, I can't really, I can repeat myself, but most of your slides in terms of the content, could have been formatted, I guess, differently to make it, once again, more visually and aesthetically pleasing. The information is there, but it's just simply, it's a matter of how it's being presented. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Johnson?
Yes. First off, I want to say that I think I misunderstood the project. The way I understood it was to explain the software, the spreadsheet that was presented. So to do that, I had to use the spreadsheet that was presented, break it down and to show it to the people who are going to use it, because it is a usable item. Not presentable, but usable. So, with that being said, hold your outrage. I used it. So, in my first slide, I show a picture. Terrible. Can't read it. It's not presentable. As an example of, don't do this. But what does it mean? So, this particular spreadsheet has 5 pages. One of them is just a licensing page, which doesn't mean anything to us. Input page, and then all the data output pages, cash flow, sales, and so on. It has a legend in its color scheme, as you see there. And these are the inputs, property assumptions you put in. These are the different assumptions. You plug it into the sheet there, as you see it displayed there. Drop down menus are available in there, and they're plug in your data there, or you change the data as required. These are the assumptions for the financial and investor owner assumptions. The next tab, cash flow tab, is what it looks like. Cost recovery data, this is the other tab. That's information on the cash flow tab. And basic data, taxable income. The cash sales worksheet is one of the other tabs that shows you that information. And then investment performance is another data output. And proof before IRR tax. And that's my conclusion.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got a couple people. All right, so. The bottom one, bottom. Hit again. Right, hit the bottom one. There you go.
Okay, it's the third template that you guys seen already, same thing. You guys recognize it, don't judge us. But my name is Dara, this is Marilyn, my partner, and we are gonna do our DCF investment analysis. So this slide just basically gives you a breakdown of what the DCF analysis is, and then our investment overall, an overview scenario.
So we just kind of highlighted just, I guess what we thought would be the best information that, a person would be interested in knowing where the project is, what, the cost, the additional cost to the loans.
I like that. I think that's a nice little graphic.
Thank you.
I was preparing myself to
We just kind of put the assumptions just based on, with the lender, the bank, or, the venture capitalist would want to know as far as assumptions, and then what the investors' needs would be.
And just for future reference, it probably is the smallest acceptable font size.
I was just about to ask if you could see.
Yeah, I can see that one. Yes, I'm good with that.
We can't hear you though unless you speak out.
I know, sorry.
No, you.
Sorry. And then here we just, yes, we did the copy paste too. So cash flow, we just kind of highlighted some of the information and basically showed what the before tax cash flow would be as opposed to the after tax cash flow, and then the taxes that the investor would pay. And then again, another, for the mortgage information, we just kind of highlighted the points that we thought that they would want to know as far as what they would be looking for as far as the mortgage. Okay, and then put a chart here that shows the cost over the next 5 years, how it's actually going to go down. And then just kind of gave some information overall, 1.74 million over the 5 years. Principal goes down, the debt goes down, and basically the chart just shows.
Now, is that showing? Okay, you say the cost of debt. Is that the? What is that? Is this the? Is the principal going down?
Yeah, it says the second bullet just says like as the.
So it is the,
loan reduces.
okay, so specifically the principal going down. Okay, that's what I was trying to. Because that description of it is not really accurate. Okay.
And kind of did the same thing with the taxable income. We showed that the first year that it's projected to make $820,000 with a 2% projected rental increase. We showed after at year 5 is going to be $892, so we just kind of showed that on the graph. Rate of return for the building project, we noticed that the after tax rate of return was lower, so we thought that they might want to know that they may be in debt for about $168,000 after it's all said and done. So just thinking, would this be a feasible project? May or may not be, so they might have to think about that. And this is just more where done IR, and again, excuse the copy paste, wanted to highlight the IR, and then the cash flows, actually just break it down for the year, so you
Okay.
can see that.
Thank you very much. So remaining on the list are Mo, Evan, Liana, Christina, Michael, Chris Spalding, and Max. So whoever wants to go next.
Okay, yeah, so what I worked on this with Bruce, and it's not really targeted towards investors, but it's using our model, pulling out the numbers and sort of presenting it sequentially in a way that makes sense. So it's a multifamily acquisition, 6 units, fictional. So this shows the unit mix, and then below this is the rent roll.
Okay, once again, I can't read any of that.
Okay. Yeah, I tried to blow it up, and I think, you know, just focusing on each module or component can make sense and is somewhat clean from a close distance.
Much better.
Okay. At the bottom is the terms of the loan, so it's a 7-year term, 70% loan to value.
So why would y'all mix up the formatting? I mean, you've got on the top everything is left justified, everything on the bottom is center justified. I mean, is there a reason for that?
No.
Okay. All right. Moving on.
Okay.
Can't read it.
Yeah, just a 5-year cash flow.
Yep. Okay.
On our model, we have you know, a breakdown of what the other income
Yep.
and operating expenses include. So at the top here gives a breakdown of the loan, and then what we're going to show is how that we are in fact underwriting the loan based on those factors, so for the borrower and the property.
Did you mix together the two projects from this afternoon and this morning?
That was my understanding. That it was, you know, presenting the numbers.
Oh.
Different. Okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Mo, you want to go ahead? Or, okay.
I'll go.
You have to double tap it. Yep, there you go.
At the bottom. At the bottom.
No, no. No, you touch the screen.
Oh, you just touch the screen. Oh,
Well, again, it's the same project that everybody's done. It's a 100-unit apartment complex in Davie, Florida.
The acquisition cost was $100 million, and our numbers, each unit, the NOI per unit was $12,000.
Okay, so once again, just to, just point out the obvious, once again, the formatting of the wording, the formatting of the numbers is inconsistent. You've got some things that you're carrying out to 2 decimal places. You've got other things you're rounding off to the nearest dollar. You've got some things you're abbreviating with the thousand or million. So it's just, okay, once again, not what you need to be doing. Okay, next slide.
Well, next slide?
Yep, next slide.
Okay, how long? 75% was $7.5 million going with an interest rate of 5%. The long term, 5 years, amortization 25 years, interest rate 4%. So our investors' marginal tax rate for this project is 28%.
So once again, this looks very similar to one of the other presentations this morning, even the same mistake of leaving off the L on the capital gain. Wasn't that yours, Isabel?
Oh. That's loud. Okay. It's the same.
All right. Once again, you got the same things. Okay. And same thing here. You've got one liability capitalized, the other one lowercase. You've got the formatting is inconsistent. So, okay. Next.
Can I read it?
What we're focusing on here is not the numbers, we're focusing on the presentation of the data. Yeah, we've read the numbers 10 times, 20 times.
I'm not going to read the numbers out.
Okay, so once again, formatting problem, the numbers should have been right justified. You've got inconsistencies in the capitalization of and abbreviations. Okay, next slide. Same issue. Okay, next slide. This looks almost identical to Isabel's presentation. Okay. Next slide. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Great presentation.
Oh, nice. Dress for success.
You can just double tap it, it'll work. There you go.
Okay. So, you guys know the numbers? Can you read that?
Yep.
Great. Okay.
Okay, that's fine. Next slide. Looks okay. Next slide. Next slide. Okay.
That I did copy.
Yep. That was your mistake. Okay. Once again, you need to write and justify the numbers on the for all of those where they're pushed off to the right where they line up. Okay. Next slide. Okay, that's fine. Once again, cut and paste only.
And then here, the one thing I want to point out is that at the end, no one's mentioned this, but you're presenting to investors, and you want to ask them if they're interested, if they want to partner with you. No one's so I asked them if they're interested.
Yeah, I'd probably leave off let's do the deal. But, okay. Next. Okay, thank you. That's the benefit of going late in the day because everybody's already seen this too many times. Okay, moving on. All right, so we got a couple people left here. It looks like Max is not here, is he? No. Christina Gibbons, is she here?
I bet he was the one who didn't do this.
And what I hear? What?
I bet he was the one who didn't do the evaluation.
We rumble.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess that's it for the presentations because the other folks aren't here. 3 people. Okay. Now, so what do we learn from this?
Don't cut and paste.
Well, beyond the don't cut and paste, what else did we learn?
Keep it simple.
So in your opinion, once again, this has nothing to do with the grading, because actually, the way that I'm doing this, it's either you did it or you didn't do it. So it's either full credit or no credit, okay? Now, having said that, who do you think, or which, we're gonna do the top three. Who do you think the best? All right. Who would you say is probably number two?
His.
Okay. And what about number
I
three?
think yours is number two. I like the short.
Which one?
Who else?
I like that.
The pink.
The chart.
Pink.
This two over here. Angelo and Woody are gonna be like 2 and 3.
Yeah.
I would say.
I like.
That was a long time ago.
I mean, I don't think the first one, but I mean, it was pretty straightforward. You know, with the information presented. I mean, they reformatted, they did different colors from the actual spreadsheets themselves. It's more visually appealing. So, you know, I would say they did a very respect. I think in terms of taking the information from the spreadsheet, converting it into a visually appealing, readable set of slides, I think they did a tremendous job. Well, you guys think the same thing or not?
Yes.
Okay. Now, is it as, you know, overwhelmingly, you know, aesthetic as what, you know, Aaron did? No. Okay. But I think, you know, in terms of getting across the information, I think they did a really good job. Okay. So I would probably say if you probably mixed, you know, 2 or 3 of these better presentations together, and what we'll probably try to do is email out these top 2 or 3 presentations to everybody so that then you can begin to kind of put together something that maybe will work in the future. But, so any other just sort of general comments or thoughts on any of these?
The numbers should be in your head, and then your presentation seems like it's kind of just about the visual and not about really presenting the numbers. It's about giving a visual presentation.
It is, but part of it is the people seeing this presentation for the very first time. They're not necessarily familiar with the numbers, but you want the numbers to jump out at them in a way to where they're not having to you know, try to once again read an infinitesimally small line item. Okay, you know, and it doesn't have to be all zippy and where you've got all these different sort of transitional slides that do all kinds of crazy, you know, fireworks and things like that. Matter of fact, I would argue against that. You know, just keeping it where it's visually, aesthetically pleasing during the presentation, and consider that it's, you know, that's what the audience is. You know, these are folks looking at these numbers and trying to understand your project.
So basically, you would look something like a mixture of errands with this kind of chart. But
Exactly.
do you prefer the chart like he has the chart?
And it's
like
not. Let's put things in perspective. This is not about what I prefer.
No, okay, what
this
is
is what I think an audience. I mean, I think most of you would agree.
Yes.
You know, after having seen all of these, because everybody was using the same numbers.
Yeah.
It's just a question of how they presented those numbers and how they ultimately, you know, got your attention or potentially didn't get your attention.
Okay,
for
for
whatever
next
reason.
time it would be something like hers, and then this kind of chart.
Yeah.
So I'll sort of this information, but in terms of like what you hand to the people you're presenting to, like how long should that package be?
The package will include all of the supporting information. The package would include the detail of the spreadsheets, you know, potentially maybe, once again, you know, formatted in a way. I mean, I think, you know, what's one thing I can say that was really good about Kyle's was that is how a project book is going to look in terms of that level of detail and that sort of aesthetic, but that's meant for a project book, the handout. That's not meant for the presentation. And see, that's the thing that I think, you know, sometimes there's a disconnect because, you know, everyone inherently thinks, okay, I want to just include all my PowerPoint slides as my book, okay? And that's not necessarily, they're not the same thing. The presentation is just that. It's a presentation of kind of summary information, whereas the book, you know, would literally have all the dirty details and the backup information and you know, all of that would simply be available so that someone can sort of, oh, I don't quite understand how they got to the NOI, but I can look in the book and I can see how they got to the NOI.
So the packet doesn't necessarily have to have the page limit. It's like as
No.
descriptive as you would want it? There's
Yeah.
no like, this is too
Well,
much.
I mean, you know, you can always provide sometimes too much information, but at least with the package, if it's well organized, you know, it could be as long as you know, 100 pages, but at the same time, many times that package is only going to be maybe 10 or 15 pages, you know, and you're going to probably have more of like an executive summary of just 2 or 3, 4 pages of kind of really condensed information that's going to kind of convey what everything is all about. But then all the addendums of things of in some cases, excuse me, it's appropriate to provide all that raw data. In other cases, it's not.
Right.
But if someone asked for it, you would have it potentially, you know, available for them.
Yeah, I'm only asking it just in case, like, as you said, like, you have the presentation, but the package was like saving you at the end of the day because that's well put together. So that's why I was asking like how thorough.
No, it's a judgment call. I mean, I would not say, you know, these are absolutes. There's a range of what I would call acceptability. You know, it's not like, you know, an absolute. It's sort of like you could sort of see from the presentations we had today. You could sort of go back to each one. You could say acceptable, unacceptable.
Right.
Okay, and then you could also then say there were some that were not just acceptable; they were outstanding. Okay, make sense?
Yeah.
So,
okay, Mr. Johnson, question?
Yes. Who is that for? Who gets this presentation?
Whoever, whether it's the investors or potential investors, whether it's the judges judging, whether it's a competition, but it's going to be people that are in essence wanting to understand the details of the project, but you want to be presented that information in a relatively straightforward way. Okay?
Bank?
A bank.
Maybe if you're trying to get a loan or something like that?
Sure.
The part of your, I mean, would you have an opportunity to give a presentation to a bank?
Yes. you
Or
would.
get more equity.
Okay.
Not just
In some cases, it will just be just a book that you're going to hand off to a lender, that you're not going to do a visual presentation, but there may be that opportunity to do the visual presentation, and if you do, this is, once again, kind of the Reader's Digest condensed version. Of course, using those words, people don't even know what Reader's Digest is, but what do you remember?
Well, yeah, but I want to make a point. The reason that I think Professor Forgy is doing this is in development 2, you're going to do like a capstone presentation, and they want to make sure that when you do your presentation and you do your financials, you model this, because I took this class, I took that class before this one, and it would be nice that when you all do your presentations then, that you save this and document it and make it like that, so he doesn't have a bunch of fonts that are that big, after he's already told us 100 times, make the fonts big.
So what you present to investors when you look for funding should be way different than what you may be presenting to, let's say, to the city commission when you're looking for.
Not necessarily. It'd be different. Okay, like city commissions aren't going to be, unless they're giving you money for the project, aren't really going to be interested in the financial performance of the project. That's none of their business, okay, for the most part, unless they're giving you money, like you're doing a joint public-private partnership kind of thing. But, you know, for a lender or for a group of investors, in terms of you trying to summarize the information for those folks, you know, you've got to come up with a format that hopefully pitches out the salient, relevant pieces of information. And it's pretty much, it's got to be error-free, okay? You know, one little typo instantly can destroy the credibility of the whole, you know, project, because, you know, it's kind of like the old saying, you know, when people would talk about resumes, you know, and people would say, if I look at a resume and I see one single mistake on that resume, it immediately goes in the trash can. And the reason for that is because that one document should be a perfect representation of what you have to offer, and you having made a mistake on that document is immediately indicative of your attention to detail. Okay? And so the same sort of thing, you know, can be said about these kinds of presentations is that, yeah, maybe among friends or whatever, yeah, you can maybe get away with that. But these are not necessarily your friends. These are people who have money, you want their money, they want to trust you with their money, they want to be assured in every way possible that you know what you're doing, you know what you're saying, you know what you're asking for, and that a good portion of it is going to be how it's presented. Okay? So that's the thing, you know, you've got to give them comfort, okay, into what it is that they're actually investing in. And you know, once again, different folks, you know, work through this differently. I mean, you know, it's the same reason why that, you know, in architecture or design school, that, you know, you do models of things, you know, physical models or visual representations of what the property is going to look like, you know, whenever it's done, or do walkthroughs or whatever that are 3D renderings, and you want those to be as visually and as aesthetically pleasing as possible, you know, as opposed to being made out of Legos, okay, or whatever, you know. So it's, you know, it's the sort of thing that, you know, you've got to you know, really think about what that audience is going to be judging you on. And, you know, that makes all the difference in the world.
Is it possible that two different investors, two different group of investors have two different views?
Of course, but that's also part of you, for you to have to discern. All I'm saying, generically speaking, is that you want to have information that is visually appealing, error-free, that provides the relevant, salient information, period, okay? All right, other thoughts, comments, observations?
When in 2010, when the recession was in, the Red Sox wanted to relocate Fort Myers to their own facility because it was all over the city, and they were the, you know, the world champions, and they came to the county and said, we're leaving if you don't build us a new Red Sox site. So there were 16 landowners in Fort Myers that had big enough pieces of property to build on, and we had to do presentations, multiple presentations to the county commission and everybody with the Red Sox organization, and I did the PowerPoints, and we ended up winning. But you don't know when you're going to need a good PowerPoint, so paying, you know, it's imperative, and it was a big audience, and it was scary, but I had a lot of time to work on it because that's all I was doing is working on this one job. But you never know when you're going to need a great PowerPoint, and all those things, you know, it was a $25 million deal for us, and it saved our company. So you never know. Okay. Other comments? Yep.
I also think that if you're not into design or really don't know what you're doing,
hire somebody.
Hire somebody.
No, it's true. So, you know, without question, you know, folks like, you know, Alex and Brandon, you know, you guys, you better call Aaron. Get synced up with Aaron, okay? All right. Gotcha. Okay. All right. Other thoughts, comments, observations? Okay. Okay. All right. Any other comments before we move on? All right. So here's the plan. All right. So the plan now, those of you that are taking test number 3, you're going to hang around. Those of you that are not taking test 3, you're done with this class. Okay. All right. So how many are taking test 3, just out of curiosity?
Can we know our score before?
I'm sorry?
Can we know our score?
Okay, so the way the scores work for this class, I mean, if you haven't been able to compute it yourself, in essence, all you're doing is taking your, obviously, test 1, test 2, and then now potentially test 3 and or quizzes 7, 8, and 9. You get a 1-point bonus for the course evaluations because some of your peers didn't take the time to do them. You got, and honestly, I don't know, I can backtrack and try to figure out who they were so that you can punish them, but we're not going to do that.
Find that out to know who they do it.
Maybe we have to go to Daytona to go find them.
So, okay, you got the 1 point for that. But as I said, everyone got full 10% credit for the presentation if you did the presentation today. Okay, so the people who are not here, they didn't get it. Okay, so the point is that should be able to allow you to calculate your grade. If you still are sort of unsure as to where you are, what letter grade that you have as of this moment, I can provide you with that. Okay, but if you already, you know, pretty much know, I can also provide you with that as well. But what we're gonna do now is sort of, a lot of the folks are gonna be taking test 3, do that. They've got the last couple of hours to do that. So let's just say we'll start the test at 10 o'clock. Okay, that should give us enough time to be able to do the grading kind of.
So we'll be back at 12:30?
Yeah, and so for those of you that obviously are in the second class, then be back at 12:30. But if you want to know what your grade is, I can give you that real quick.
This is it for me.
And
I'm done. Well, after the next class. That's in June. No, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see how everybody works out. We'll have a reunion. Today's my anniversary. So, 26 years. So I think I'm headed to the Keys. I don't know if my wife wants to go to the Keys, bro. Guys, after you're married 26 years, I gotta pull my crab traps. What do you do? Okay. Thank you. I run all of the company. Yeah. Well, I got my crab traps. We haven't pulled those. Plus, with the cold weather, taking a test. I love the jacket, man. I was going to wear a jacket today, but my wife's like, I'm very disappointed in this guy. I thought he was going to
You want to meet back here, maybe 12 o'clock? We can review the things in 30 minutes.
You guys got big
But to make it easy, you talk about the slides you did because you know it. You're comfortable with why you did it. I'll talk about the parts I get that way we know what we're talking about. Because you, by doing that, part of it, you understand the challenge, the methodology. It's hard to, like conceptualize how they link, and then how it fits in. How does that piece fit into the whole?
I gave her all of this as part of a well, last time
I added some sheets. Remember that evaluation software?
So, and I don't like.
Well, I ended up putting our numbers in it. It spit out a lot of.
See you down there. Yeah.
So I added it as like. I put option. We won't get into it. Or maybe I'll show you. Just for fun, we put our numbers into that. How does a professional software program used look compared to ours? It's more detail. So, let me know you can just down the line, like when I look at this, I want to be able to compare, like as I get time, I'm gonna compare the two. So yeah, disregard the last. No. I think it's.
So when you put it up there, I'm like,
well, we'll review it. We'll go through each slide.
Almost telling you what these guys
I need it. Close to the we need a 94%. It's a big difference between an A and You got a little room to mess up?
That's right.
What I may do is an internship. My office. We have design construction.
Includes everything.
Give him a B minus. I'm trying to avoid the C, man. I'm trying to avoid the B, man. I'll try to avoid the C. Isabel.
Okay, everybody got their grade that wants it? Okay, is that it? Everybody? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pass out the test for those people that are remaining. If you're not taking the test, I would appreciate if you could vacate the room. There should be plenty of other rooms if you need a place to sit, okay?
But right now, for the last 4 weeks, I have to eat
Well, all I can say is you can try. Effort is better than no effort. Okay? Chris, you taking the test? Okay? Okay?